Hello, friends. English literature. Elizabeth and Jacobin drama. The Duchess of Malfi by John Webster. Brief questions with answers. Brief questions 209 to 270. Question 209. Love mixed with fear is sweetest. Who is the speaker? Answer: the Duchess is the speaker. Question 210. Why does Ferdinand say that he will not see his sister again? Answer: Ferdinand enters the room quietly while Duchess speaks to herself in the mirror. The things she tells herself angers Ferdinand, and he says that she has ruined her reputation. For this reason, he says that he will not see her again. Question 211. Why does the Duchess make a lie about Antonio? Answer: the Duchess makes a lie about Antonio in order to save his skin from the rages of her brothers. Question 212. What lie does the Duchess make about Antonio? Answer: the Duchess makes a lie that Antonio has falsified her accounts and failed to repay a loan which she had taken from some Jews at Naples. Question 213. On what grounds does the Duchess dismiss Antonio from her service? Answer: the Duchess dismisses Antonio on the grounds that Antonio has falsified her accounts and failed to repay a loan which she had taken from some Jews at Naples. Question 214. Where does the Duchess suggest Antonio to flee? Answer: the Duchess suggests Antonio to flee to Ancona. Question 215. What is Ancona? Answer: Ancona is a city-state in Italy. Question 216. Who is the god of riches according to Bosola? Answer: according to Bosola, Plutus is the god of riches. Question 217. Why does the Duchess reveal the identity of her husband to Bosola? Answer: as Bosola praises Antonio, she trusts him, and as a result, she tells him that Antonio is the father of her 3 children. Question 218. Whom does the Duchess tell to take her jewels and coins to Ancona? Answer: she tells Bosola to take her jewels and coins to Ancona, where Antonio has fled to. Question 219. What does Bosola suggest the Duchess should do? Answer: Bosola suggests that the Duchess should pretend to go to Lady of Loreto first before Ancona. Question 220. What is Lady of Loreto? Answer: Loreto is a place 15 miles away from Ancona. There is a relic, the Holy House, believed to be that of Virgin Mary. Question 221. Why did the emperor ask the cardinal to give up his priesthood? Answer: the emperor asked the cardinal to give up his priesthood to become a soldier. Question 222. Why did the emperor make the cardinal an army general? Answer: hearing of his worth as a soldier before he became a priest, the emperor made the cardinal a soldier. Question 223. How did the cardinal make Antonio, the Duchess, and their children banish from Ancona? Answer: instigating the Pope, the cardinal made Antonio, the Duchess, and their children banish from Ancona. Question 224. What is Padua? Answer: Padua is a center of art and learning. Question 225. Why does the Duchess call Cariola a superstitious fool? Answer: the Duchess tells Bosola to take her jewels and coins to Ancona, where Antonio has fled to. She plans to follow Bosola to Ancona, but Bosola suggests that she should stop by the shrine of the Lady of Loreto so that she could depart the country with more honor. Cariola doesn't like the idea, so Duchess calls her a superstitious fool. Question 226. What strange dream did the Duchess have? Answer: the Duchess had a dream. She dreamed that she was wearing a coronet with diamonds, and the diamonds suddenly turned into pearls. Question 227. How does Antonio translate the Duchess's dream? Answer: the Duchess dreamed at night that she was wearing a coronet with the diamonds, and the diamonds suddenly turned into pearls. Antonio translates the dream that the Duchess will be saddened soon, and the pearls will signify her tears. Question 228. What does the letter which Bosola handed to the Duchess say? Answer. The letter which Bosola handed to the Duchess say that Ferdinand wants Antonio's head. Question 229. What does Antonio do after hearing that Ferdinand wants his head? Answer. Antonio, after hearing that Ferdinand wants his head, flees to Milan. Question 230. Whom does Antonio take with him when he fled to Milan? Answer. When Antonio fled to Milan, he takes his eldest son with him. Question 231. Who arrests the Duchess? Answer. Bosola arrested the Duchess in disguise, wearing a mask in his face. Question 232. Where does Bosola take the Duchess after arresting her? Answer. After arresting her, Bosola takes her to her palace. Question 233. What does Bosola say when Ferdinand asks him about his sister's feeling in prison? Answer. Ferdinand asks Bosola how the Duchess is feeling now that she is in prison. Bosola tells him that she is sad and in misery. Question 234. What is Ferdinand's reaction when he learns that his sister feels miserable in prison? Answer. Ferdinand is glad that the Duchess of Malfi feels miserable. Question 235. Why does Ferdinand visit the Duchess in the dark room? Answer. Ferdinand visits the Duchess in the dark room because he had vowed never to see her again. Question 236. What does Ferdinand give the Duchess when he visits her in a dark room? Answer. In the dark room, Ferdinand gives her a severed hand with a ring, making her think that it was Antonio's hand. Question 237. What makes the Duchess think that Antonio and the children are dead? Answer. After Ferdinand left, the Duchess sees the wax figures behind a curtain that appear to her to be Antonio and the children dead. Question 238. Why does the Duchess want to die? Answer. After Ferdinand left, the Duchess sees figures behind a curtain that appear to her to be Antonio and the children dead. After knowing that Antonio and the children are dead, she doesn't want to live anymore and says she wants to die. Question 239. Who has made the wax figures of Antonio and his children? Answer. Vincenzio Loriola has made the wax figures of Antonio and his children. Question 240. What is the greatest torture according to Duchess? Answer. According to the Duchess, the greatest torture for a man or a woman is to live when he or she has lost all desires to live. Question 241. Who was Portia? Answer. Portia was the wife of Brutus. She committed suicide by putting burning coals on her tongue when she found that life was intolerable for her. Question 242. Why does the Duchess want to follow the examples of Portia? Answer. When the Duchess sees the wax figures of her husband and children, she thinks them to be dead and wants to die. She loses all her desires to live, so she wants to follow the examples of Portia. Question 243. What does Carolus say about the madman? And Carolus says that Ferdinand has sent the madman for the Duchess's entertainment. Question 244. How many madmen does Ferdinand send to the Duchess? Ferdinand sends 8 madmen to the Duchess. Question 245. Why does Ferdinand send the madman? Answer. Ferdinand says the madman in order to torture the Duchess. Question 246. How do the madmen torture the Duchess? Answer. The madmen torture the Duchess by singing and dialoguing. Question 247. Who comes to the Duchess after the madmen leave? Answer. After the madmen leave, Bosola comes in. Question 248. What does the Duchess request Cariola when she is going to be strangled? Answer. When she is going to be strangled, the Duchess requests Cariola to take care of her children. The Duchess tells her that it is Cariola's duty to look after the children, to take care for, and to take her body's cold, and to take her boy's cold and some syrup, and to teach the girl to say prayer before she goes to sleep. Question 249. What excuse does Carola make to save her life? Answer: to save her life, Carola makes three excuses. She is betrothed to a young gentleman and have to get married to him. B. She has not confessed her sins to any priest for the last 2 years. C. She is pregnant. Question 250. What do the people with lycanthropia do? The people with lycanthropia think they are wolves and dig up dead bodies. Question 251. What does Ferdinand try to do? Answer: Ferdinand goes crazy and tries to catch his shadow by falling on it. Question 252. What does the doctor give Ferdinand? Answer: the doctor gives Ferdinand some salamander skin. Question 253. Why does the doctor give Ferdinand some salamander skin? Answer: the doctor gives Ferdinand some salamander skin to keep him from getting burned by the sun. Question 254. What does the doctor tell everyone? Answer: the doctor tells everyone that he is going to make Ferdinand as tame as dormouse. Question 255. Who tells Bosola to kill Antonio? Answer: the cardinal tells Bosola to find Antonio in Milan and kill him. Question 256. What does Bosola say? Bosola says that Antonio is nothing else but Antonio is nothing else but murder, but he doesn't want the death of the Duchess. Question 257. What does Julia accuse Bosola of? Answer: Julia accuses Bosola of putting love potion in her drink, as a result of which she has fallen in love with her. Question 258. Where is the Duchess buried? Answer: the Duchess is buried next to the Carola's house. Question 259. Why would the cardinal not want anyone to come to her brother's aid if he needed it? Answer: the cardinal would not want anyone to come to her brother's aid if he needed it because he wants to kill Bosola without the knowledge of others. Question 260. Who stabs Antonio? Bosola stabs Antonio. Question 261. Why does Bosola stab Antonio? Answer: Bosola wants to kill the cardinal, but he stabs Antonio, taking him for the cardinal. Question 262. Why does Bosola mistakes Antonio for the cardinal? Answer: Bosola knows that none would come into the cardinal's room, as he orders everyone not to go there, but if Ferdinand needs their help. But Antonio knows nothing. He comes there to try and make peace with the cardinal. Besides, it is pitch black. Therefore, Antonio mistakes Antonio for the cardinal and stabs him. Question 263. How does Bosola's killing Antonio compare to Hamlet's killing of Polonius? Answer: when Hamlet killed Polonius, he was behind the curtain. Hamlet did not know who the man behind the curtain was. Similarly, Bosola kills Antonio without knowledge that he is Antonio. Question 264. Why does none come to help the cardinal when he is yelling for help? Answer: Pescara, Maladesti, Roderigo, and Grisolon hear the cardinal yelling for help. However, they do nothing, for the cardinal had just told them not to. Question 265. Why does Bosola first kill the cardinal's servant? Bosola first kills the cardinal's servant so the servant doesn't open the door to let rescue in. Question 266. What does Bosola say when the cardinal asks why Bosola wants to kill him? Answer: when the cardinal asks why Bosola wants to kill him, Bosola points out Antonio's body and adds that when the cardinal ordered the Duchess to be killed, he took her justice away. Question 267. How many times does Bosola stab the cardinal? Answer: Bosola stabs the cardinal twice. Question 268. Will Antonio's son become the next ruler of Malfi? Answer. Delio and Antonia's eldest son entered just after everyone has died. Delio tells everyone that they should join together to make Antonio's son the Duke of Malfi. Question 2769. What message does Delio give the audience in the last words? And so in the last words, Delio gives the message to the audience that integrity is the best friend of reputation. Integrity is rewarded even after death. Question 270. What is melodrama? Answer. A melodrama is a play in which there are a lot of exciting or sad events and in which people's emotions are very exaggerated. Originally, it made use of melody and music, while modern melodramas may not contain any music at all. Thank you friends for watching my video.